Welcome, everyone. Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, one of the things that we have to understand in this particular time and place, and life is really based in time and place. We have to understand with the massive advancement we've had in, well, basically pseudoscience, but even in hardcore science in the last 30 to 40 years is shocking. We've had more advances and continue to have more advances in modern time than all of the ancient time put together. And if you're a person who is in your 60s or maybe from your 40s up, you can look back and look at the evolution of technologies. I mean, the internet is relatively new and really hasn't been in massive use except for about 20 years now. And every year it evolves to a higher level. People weren't buying on Amazon 20 years ago to any great extent. The internet wasn't even all that known. I was dealing with Amazon when they opened up because I was a bookseller and didn't really know who they were. I wasn't really on the net using different websites. I was had a computer and was using it for business purposes, word processing, catalogs, order processing, etc., which is how all these things take off. And they usually take off combined with some sort of sexual use. The VCR took off because people then could stay at home and jack off instead of going to movie theaters or in their car or whatever it is that people. That's why that evolved. The computers evolved for the same reason. People could now see pornography in the privacy of their home. Don't think there's any higher levels to anything. Always go down to the base and work up. That's all part of Gnostic understanding. Now, as a Gnostic, a lot of Gnostic belief systems are varied and dramatic, and of course have been perverted to move you in different directions. But you could say that basic Gnosticism can be equated in philosophical understandings in the practical world as Stoicism, the fantastic system of life and how to handle it and what's going on in life, created by Marcus Aurelius and others, the great Roman emperors, the original and only Caucasians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Celts, etc. But of course, this was shoved in the toilet and flushed a billion times to bring in the false and disgusting Arabic Aryan tradition perpetrated by people like Freud, Reich, Schopenhauer, etc., the scum of the earth who have destroyed human consciousness. So you got to understand that anyone who really wants to find out what's going on in life should study Stoicism. This isn't philosophical. This gives you real answers, which is the reason why it was replaced by the drug-induced, psychotic, ultra-sexual reality given to us by the German Arabs and their numerous propping up of their boobs to tell us garbage thoughts, which has been embraced by the pseudo-intellectual crap dumbademia. It's so sophisticated. Ooh, yeah, you're in your cuckoo. Let's give them cocaine because the drug companies want us high sigming. Oh, so the whole idea is all these things are run that way of society. Now, Gnosticism also is very practical. Now, we can look at Stoicism, which tells you how to handle life, but Gnostic belief systems have to do with the fact of understanding that the physical has no value. Now, you have to understand that. It doesn't matter what physicalness you are, it will eventually erode. Even the greatest granite or stones or even the pyramids every day are eroding and will eventually disappear unless protected by artificial means. So everything physical dissipates. When we get into more physical structures, such as biological structures instead of crystalline mineral structures, things, of course, decay rapidly. So the human lifespan, which is going to continue to go down for many years, but in some societies and in general, we can say that human lifespan is 80 years old, which hasn't changed very much in the last 30 or 40 years. Those who have a little better life and who have a little better care tend to live to be 85 to 90. That's pretty pathetic. And of those years, you probably only have about 60 years that are relatively productive. You still have to do a job, waste your time cleaning, cooking, washing, all the things you have to do just to survive as a biological entity. If you're lucky enough to then spend some time and research and other things, you're usually done by 65, where they kick you out or so, which is really when you're reaching your peak. And have much better insights because you're not really concentrated on sexuality, on worrying about money. Generally, when you get older, these things tend to dissipate in value. We have some very serious problems here. So that means all this physical stuff is worthless. And traditional Gnostics, like the Cathars, considered anything physical to be created by Satan or demons. And to a certain extent, it makes sense. I mean, you can't take anything with you. All these people, whatever they are, the boobs who have reached the high levels, the super rich that have made money off of idiocy, like Elon Musk, Bezos, and all the other people. Oh, Steve Jobs, yeah, taking it, ayahuasca, I'm a genius. Idiot stooges like that. Have given us nothing. And none of that can be done. It's all old. Everything that was pretty much available 20 years ago has now been improved dramatically in modern times. So we have to keep that in mind. And we have to also understand that the older stuff just isn't valid anymore. It may have some interesting aspects, maybe it has some uses, but the bottom line is that the newer tech that comes out is cheaper and better. And we have to embrace that. So while a lot of things were unavailable to the general public or very expensive years ago to get some basic electronics or lasers or so many other things, is no longer the case. Now you can get very high quality equipment, even which was always a thing that people spent a lot of money on, was stereo systems, music, dude. And as CDs came in, people then wanted to get really pure sound. Well, you can now get a fantastic speaker from Bose, who probably makes the best equipment out there, not probably does, for $150 that you, in the past, 15, 20 years ago, would cost you $3,500. And which I did buy many years ago, was a 5-speaker Bose system, which was fantastic, but it was $3,500. And of course, you're talking about 20 years ago. You no longer really have to do that. You can get some really good sound for about $150 with a basic Bose speaker. Of course, having multi-speakers and all these other things, and as prices go up, but still you're looking at systems that you can get pretty inexpensively, and that was never the case with audio electronics, which people did invest a lot of money in the olden days when dinosaurs roamed the earth. So we got to understand, you really want to go back and do that? Well, now we have found there are your little exceptions to things. People somehow think that the scratching and popping of vinyl records is kind of cool, dude. They just scratch them and they pop and you can't hear things. Yeah, that's old good tech, which people want. And of course, that's the ignorance of modern society. You cannot beat a CD. I didn't even know half of the instruments that were on a CD on a record until I listened to the CD. And all of a sudden, I could hear all these other instruments. So I believe that to be bogus, but I guess it gives you a certain sound from a singer that is higher quality than you will get. So here we go again, comparing old and new and trying to extract the best out of it. So there is a certain quality from old vinyl records that doesn't reproduce in CD to some extent, particularly in the voice area. So the idea is you want to use the good with the bad. So you throw out the bad and you use the good from past and present. But in general, all the older tech is very inferior. And you want to use the newer stuff. And a lot of newer stuff, as my tech that I offer, incorporates the best of the old. And that kind of really brings in my philosophy of everything in general. I don't believe in throwing out anything, but we do have to understand the inferiority of old products, no matter what they are. People like to say, yeah, it's old and stinky and it wasn't quite straight. And yeah, that's better. It was handmade. Look at all the errors. Well, I'm not a fan of that. So I'm a fan of quality, and quality in this day and age should be able to be made at low prices and give very high quality. Now, that's not done for business reasons. Your furniture comes in a box now by some Swedish Nazi who decided to give you furniture in a box. Yeah, well, that isn't really an advancement. It's garbage that will never be kept, and you can just see piles of it everywhere in the world because after you use it for 5 or 6 years, that's all it is. It's plastic, it's glued together garbage. Now, that's not high tech. That's not advancement. That's capitalistic greed. And of course, IKEA is famous for that. But the whole idea is that we have to understand the reality of this. So there's certainly also nothing wrong with that if you're using something temporary. If you have to get something that's hand constructed and going to cost you $500 for a CD holder, well, maybe it's better to get one for $75 from IKEA and throw it away. I'm not sure that keeping certain physical items is of great value anyway. So it's always good, my philosophy, and as would be understood in Gnosticism, is to buy something of good quality and keep it longer. Get something that fits you well if it's clothing, has good fabric that looks good, and try and keep it instead of buying the crap after crap. And I think that goes with everything. But when it comes to electronics, this is very difficult. And we have to understand that every year electronics are updated. So if you're keeping anything that's electronic more than 3 years, you probably have an inferior equipment because it's using more electricity. The circuits in it aren't as good. And I noticed this with all, so most electronics should be upgraded about every 3 years if they're common in nature. I noticed the difference from simple things like toasters and blenders and choppers. The new choppers are 10 times better than the ones I got 3 years ago. Multi-blades, better equipment, they're even lower cost. So this is all part of it. So keeping things, depending on what it is, particularly with the cost factors, is ridiculous. What people don't understand is in the 70s and 80s, things like blenders and other things used to sell for $150 to $250. Now you get one for $25 that does a much better job and has better blades and can do everything. And so you throw it away in 3 years and get one that has better electronics inside that uses less energy and has the new tech of blades and everything else. So, and you say, well, this is a waste. It isn't a waste when you look at the dollars and cents of it. Secondly, this keeps businesses in business. If you want a good product, you have to keep buying it, or at least at a certain increment of time. If you only sell one item, and this happened with the light bulb, basically light bulbs when they were invented, would last forever. The problem is nobody wanted to make a light bulb. So they cut down the light bulb so it would work for a certain number of years, and then it would burn out. You'd have to buy another one. So that's the old story connected to that. It makes a lot of sense. So if you expect a vibrant industry, well, you're going to have to replace your electronics or whatever it is every 3 to 5 years or maybe sooner. And they certainly are cheap enough to do that. So if you don't do that, you're going to get a bunch of garbage. So that's the reality of almost any business. And there's constant changes. There's no way that you invent something and that's the end all be all and you don't come up with a new one. Even hammers have changed from their original design in many, many ways. Materials, handles, even their shapes have changed dramatically. So everything changes, and supporting new technology by getting rid of your old stuff is very important. And that goes with all types of areas. So we do have to look at the fact that old stuff has generally little to no value. Now, old stuff is a starting of whatever industry you're in. And you always want to go back to the beginning and say, what was in this guy's mind? And how can you look at it today? Is there something that's been overlooked? They obviously had some idea. And of course, this is true to a degree. But following in any slavish way with the massive advancements that we have now by following old tech is completely bogus, because that's what we're doing right now. We're following old tech when it comes to so many things, when it comes to medicine and healing and electric. We still have not figured out, because they haven't put the money into it, of how to generate electricity cheaply. Everybody is saying that we have to go back to nuclear power because that's a tried and true way of doing things because of the so-called shortage of petroleum, which isn't really true at all. But we're refusing to move ahead because of the old, stupid, and traitorous people that are in your scientific community. And in the end, we can blame almost all our troubles in the world on scientists that supposedly are supposed to produce things. So the whole idea is that, and I'll get back to that in a minute, but the bottom line is that looking at things, the old, and trying to reproduce them, which is particularly done in the radionic scalar field, is a huge error. And people are putting out the worst, most garbage stuff that is based on over 100-year-old technology, which none of the inventors of that time would have used. All inventors, all people that make breakthroughs, are using the technology that is available to them today. So to think that you should go back to 1920 and use that particular type of part is really stupid fallacy, because it's been replaced by something better. Now, combining things by using certain tech from the past that may have proven to be more effective is something you have to look into. A lot of people think that tunable capacitors are better than potentiometers and other things. Well, all of this can be argued depending on what you're doing with it. But in general, for modern electronics, when you're not dealing in the psychotronic realm, using these giant tunable capacitors is a little bit ridiculous. And so is so many other things moving away from common electronics, which now is coming back to a degree, but common electronics having tube or vacuum tubes and other things in them is really a silly way to go for TVs and radios and other things. These are serviceable parts that you have to pull out, and why use it when you have now transistors that do the job without having to use that? So it's very good for common stuff. When you're getting into high level, and even now on the practical level, they're finding out that vacuum tubes move a gargantuan amount of information that you can't move any other way except through photons and vacuum tubes. Very interesting. So a modified version of the old concept of vacuum tubes, as I do with my tech, using them in modified ways, does amazing results and gets you amazing results. So this is what we have to, but it takes a very high intellectual person. If you go to any kind of electronic school today, whatever that may be, they're going to teach you not to think of valves and tubes. They're going to only think of solid state electronics. This is the kind of dumbademia garbage that continues to be pushed on in academia. Well, this is an error. You should always look to see if there's anything already used and developed that you can blend into the new tech and use it at a higher level, so you don't have to invent the wheel all over again. These are the kind of errors that we always run into, and really kind of comical in how messed up the regular world is. And of course, these are the people that are messed up and have faulty thinking. That we have the people that think that science is a religion and thinks that everything else is kind of silly. That there certainly is nothing mystical or unknown in the world, because we know everything. We're scientists. After all, we haven't cured anything. We have no free energy. We can't cure dandruff or pimples. All of this stuff because we know everything. Huh? So this is what all these bum-headed, dung-smelling scientists tend to grab onto with their idiocy and their group of criminal cohorts that'll then go show you what the real functioning of things are, because basically it's rigged. And all they do is show what has been proven out there. And you got to remember that science is based on 500-year-old science that they still hang on to because they can't find anything different and they can't figure it out. Yeah, we need 500-year-old concepts to things, which have really pretty much almost all of them been proven to be wrong, and it keeps you locked in a box. And when you're locked in that box, nothing happens. And that's pretty much where we're at. Nothing is happening now. We're not breaking through anything by using all these old scientific understandings coming from 500 years ago. We don't need Newton's stuff anymore, other than as a basically a lining for the birdcage. And you need a lining. But remember, it's just a lining for the birdcage. It's there to catch the poo. So the whole idea is that's all it is for. And by thinking in this closed mind, and people keep being reaffirmed by this, and these people that continue to feed us failure continue to be highly sought after and supported so that they can continue to show their ignorant ways. Now, there's a new breed of physicists out there, and these physicists think that they're philosophers now, and they think they can comment on. And of course, the head of the Skeptic Society said the same thing. Why can't we make comments on society and philosophy? Because then you're getting into areas which are contradictory, but they're so stupid they don't get that. So a physicist is so stupid to think that you can make a final attitude or statement about some philosophical understanding, and that because they're grounded in bogus science, that it is right. And of course, that's what Michael Shermer did with the Skeptic Society, thinking that he knows everything. And it's all the same thing. And these scientists, particularly those idiots out there, that are very popular, continue to come out and try and act like they're open-minded. Sean Carroll is one of these stooges who continues to come out saying, well, wouldn't it be nice that they're aliens? Wouldn't it be nice that there was Atlantis? I would love that to be true, but it's not. So this is what their science. While we have huge, a fantastic amount of information proving the opposite, but they won't give it credit. And they're pretty much the only ones that don't give it credit. Those who are really in control are using this information all the time. The intelligence agencies that run the world are very tuned in to extraterrestrials and advanced science, while Sean Carroll is pretty much trying to reinvent the screwdriver. And nothing is real, we can't prove it. Bayesian! It's Bayesian philosophy, which is, if it hasn't happened before, it's not gonna happen. So you've already closed the box on that. So nothing new can happen because we already know everything. And of course, they continue to produce their garbage tech that does nothing. So this is the problem we have of where society has gone to, and the fact of the really low-level nonsense that we're trapped in. And this will never change, which is why society never changes. And the people that are put into positions of power are the same stooges that believe all this. And this will never change. Particularly those like Sean Carroll, who has put himself in a pedestal now, where he spends all his time in philosophical physics. Isn't that? That's like theoretical physics. That's what Einstein was. Maybe a bird dropping poo means the world is flat. So the whole idea is we get into all these nonsensical things done by people that have created and produced absolutely nothing and continue to do it and base their philosophy in 500 years ago. Yeah, we need more Newton crap, who was a strange and bizarre person himself, like all of these people are, that people don't quite understand. When you look at these people personally, you find out what kind of a really horrific deviants they were. But as we move into all these areas, we have to be very crystal clear with it. And as people continue to support the bogus idiots that produce nothing but have little certificates that say, I'm a bogus idiot, it's official, and you buy into that, well, there's a problem. So we must do that. And who are the people causing these problems? And let's understand the fact that if you're going to base everything on old knowledge, you're going to come up with nothing. And that's what we have. They want to explain the world in 500 years old physics because it makes them feel warm and comfy. Oh, it's like comfort food. It's like macaroni and cheese. Oh, it makes me feel good to eat that garbage that's terrible for you. So this is really where they're at. They don't want to venture out into anything that basically many others have talked about and proven. They want to stay connected to their pocketbook and to the institutions that keep them functioning as the really pathetic reality that they're in. So this is something that we always have to be very careful of watching. And what do these people do? And who can we blame all our problems on when we really get down to it? Well, the bottom line is we can blame all of our problems on one particular area of people who are empowering the worst scum in the world. meaning military, police, our politicians, who are giving them the weapons of mass destruction. We talk about this all the time, or horrible, horrible things. Well, the whole idea is your scientists are doing this. They decide that they're going to produce these horrible weapons of destruction, as they did with the nuclear bomb in World War II, to give these psychopaths weapons so that they can go out there. And of course, it's for our own protection. Of course it is. So the point is, in World War II, almost everybody had a nuclear bomb. It was just a matter of delivering it. People had problems with delivery. The Japanese had detonated a nuclear bomb in Korea years before that. They just didn't have it. Even Einstein stated that the Japanese will bring a ship into San Pedro Harbor in Los Angeles and detonate it there because they couldn't get it detonated directly. So these are all things that, of course, you don't know about, and of course you won't be told. But has the science done anything about that? Has science figured out? Well, I'll tell you right now, the latest problem with science is apparently all of the, quote, enemies, which are basically the balance factors of the world, the Russians, the Chinese, and the Iranians, all have missiles that are much better than ours. They have particularly warheads that can dissipate into many different warheads and cannot be tracked by lasers or anything else to destroy them. So it means that any missile defenses are worthless because the enemy, as we consider them, and the trillion-dollar military-industrial complex has failed us. Maybe it's time to bring out the guillotines. We paid trillions of dollars, and these failures, who are basing their science on people like Sean Carroll and other losers, have not come through. How come the Russians and Chinese have these advanced, and Iranians have the advanced military missiles, and we don't? Thank you, Raytheon, Lockheed, and all you other scumbuckets. You are leaving an entire country under possible devastation from missiles. So the whole idea is that the inferior science that is produced by our military-industrial complex, not only haven't they figured out still how to destroy things properly, which they think they're good at, but never seems to do anything, but now they've made the entire West vulnerable because they haven't come up with the proper missile systems. So we can thank them yet again. So even when it comes down to do what they do the best, Satan's work, the devil's domain of murdering other humans out there, they have failed at that as well. So all these things that are out there and all the secrets and everything else that are going on, well, who knows what's going on in the bigger picture ultimately, because we're just stooges working for the criminal intelligence agencies who are just filling their pockets with money and doing whatever they want out there. And certainly that isn't a higher goal for mankind. You don't make money, at least people don't think you do. You don't make money off of everybody working together and producing a great society. That would be something of higher consciousness. That would be Gnostic thinking. But when you're in the sewer and you think they're criminal way with their criminal religions based in pagan sacrifices, dead people on sticks, sacrificing hundreds of thousands of animals, and all the other garbage that goes into the Judeo-Christian and even Buddhic practices, is what you get from these horrible, evil people that society continues to want in power. So, I mean, that's the facts of it all out there, people. You need to wake up. You need to understand that it's all about ascension and escaping. The people that run this planet will never change. They're the lowest level out there. And we're now going through the final surge that is happening to the world population as a even more debased religious practice than Christianity and Judaism will seize the world, and the blood will flow. That's the future. Well, I hope everyone's happy. Until next time.